For most of my marriage, I thought I had lucked out. Bella and I were high school sweethearts. When we said our vows at 22, I genuinely believed we had the kind of love stories are written about. It wasn't perfect, of course, but it felt real. Then came the storm. It began subtly, like a barely noticeable shift in the wind. Bella started taking yoga classes, at least. That's what she told me. She was excited, more animated than usual, and I was happy for her. She deserved to have a space to unwind, a hobby to call her own. I'd even joke, just don't come back chanting mantras and trying to sage the house. But after a couple of months, something didn't sit right. Her phone, once an open book, now rarely left her side. Her laughter, so warm and genuine, now sounded hollow, forced when we were together. And then there were the whispers. I'd wake up at night to hear her muffled voice down the hall, murmuring softly, though our friends and family never called it odd hours. I brushed it off as paranoia. Bella had always been devoted, and we were in a good place, or so I thought. I convinced myself it was work stress or a new social circle from the yoga studio. Little did I know, her newfound balance was anything but innocent. The first crack came during a dinner party. One of her friends, an acquaintance to me, mentioned a name I didn't recognize, Liam. The table erupted in laughter when Bella blushed deeply, waving her hands dismissively. Oh, stop it, Jen, he's just a good instructor. I locked eyes with Bella. Her reaction was too visceral, too guilty. When she noticed my expression, her smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, turning her attention to refilling wine glasses. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind was a carousel of questions. Who was Liam? Why had she never mentioned him? But most of all, why did her reaction feel so off? The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. While she was in the shower, I picked up her phone, my hands trembling. I didn't go into her messages, that felt too invasive, even in my suspicions. But her photos? It felt safer, less damning. At first, everything seemed normal: selfies, group pictures from the yoga studio, and screenshots of recipes. Then I found a video that didn't belong. My stomach churned when I hit play. It wasn't explicit, but it didn't have to be. Bella was at a park I didn't recognize, laughing as Liam, a man I had never seen before, pushed her on a swing. Her laughter in that moment was real, unfiltered, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. The video ended with Bella saying, "You know your trouble, right?" and Liam responding with a sly, "Oh, you love it." I shut the phone off, my blood boiling. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Was this emotional cheating? Had it gone further? My gut told me it had. But here's where things get interesting. When I confronted Bella that evening, I didn't let her know what I had found. Instead, I asked casually, "Hey, how's yoga going?" Her answer was swift, almost rehearsed, "Great, we're doing more meditation lately." "Why?" "No reason," I replied, masking my turmoil. "Just wondering if your instructor is any good." "Liam, right?" The fork in her hand froze midair, and for a split second, I saw it, the deer in headlights look that would change my life forever. She quickly recovered, smiling too brightly, and said, "Oh, he's just okay, nothing special." In that moment, I knew Bella had secrets, and I was about to uncover every last one of them. The moment Bella mentioned Liam was just okay, my instincts kicked into overdrive. Her smile was tight, her words rehearsed. Something wasn't right, and I was determined to find out what. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that swing video playing on a loop. Who was Liam, and why did he have my wife laughing like that, so free, so unguarded? It was a version of Bella I hadn't seen in a long time, and it gnawed at me. The next morning, Bella left early for her yoga class. I waited 5 minutes after she drove off before grabbing my keys and following her. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like the start of a bad soap opera, but desperation does strange things to a man. I tailed her at a safe distance, my pulse pounding as she turned down roads that didn't lead to her usual studio. Finally, she pulled into the parking lot of a boutique coffee shop. Not suspicious on its own, everyone loves overpriced lattes, but then I saw him. Liam. I recognized him instantly from the video. Tall, athletic build, a laid-back confidence in the way he leaned against his car. Bella got out of hers, smoothing her hair nervously before walking toward him. They didn't kiss, but the way he placed his hand on her lower back as they walked inside made my blood boil. It wasn't casual, it wasn't platonic. I parked a block away and debated my next move. Storm in? Cause a scene? Demand answers? But something held me back. I needed proof, real proof, before I confronted her. So, I waited. For 2 hours, I sat in my car, heart thudding as I watched them through the window. They laughed, leaned in close, and at one point, Bella placed her hand on his arm in a way that made my stomach churn. Eventually, they got up and left, driving off in separate directions. I followed Liam. Now, this is where things took an unexpected turn. I didn't know what I was planning to do, maybe confront him, maybe just gather information, but when he pulled into a house at the edge of town, I felt a surge of adrenaline. The place was modest, not what I expected for someone like him. There was a mailbox at the curb with the name Ellison etched on it. I didn't follow him inside, of course, but I did the next best thing. I Googled him, and boy, did I hit the jackpot. Liam Ellison wasn't just a yoga instructor. He was a name I recognized after a bit of digging. He had a scandalous past, a former tennis coach who was forced to leave a high-profile country club after allegations of inappropriate relationships with married clients. The club had settled quietly, but the whispers followed him. He'd reinvented himself as a yoga instructor, but the pattern was clear: he had a type. And now, my wife was his latest target. But here's where things got weirder. As I scrolled through the search results, one article caught my eye. It was about his involvement in some local scam, a wellness retreat that ended in lawsuits from angry attendees who claimed they'd been conned out of thousands of dollars. Liam's name was mentioned as a silent partner. This wasn't just some guy messing around with my wife. He was a predator, a grifter, and he'd lured Bella into his web.
I drove home, my mind racing. The betrayal was bad enough, but the thought of Bella being manipulated, or worse, lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about protecting her, whether she deserved it or not. That night, I didn't confront her. Instead, I started planning. If Liam thought he could swoop into my life and ruin it, he had no idea who he was dealing with. After learning about Liam's shady past, I knew I couldn't just sit idly by. This wasn't just about Bella cheating, it was about exposing Liam for what he was. I didn't want to confront Bella yet. She'd either deny everything or spin it into a sob story, and I wasn't ready to deal with that. Instead, I decided to gather as much evidence as I could. The first step, gaining access to Bella's phone. She'd become unusually protective of it, but I knew her habits. Every evening, she'd take a long bath, complete with candles and one of her mystery novels. It was her ritual, and she'd leave her phone on the counter, unattended for about 30 minutes. That night, I waited until I heard the sound of running water before quietly slipping into the bathroom. Sure enough, her phone was there. Thankfully, I already knew her passcode, her birth year, a detail she'd never bothered to change. The first thing I checked was her messages. I found a thread with Liam under the name Yogi Life. Subtle. The texts made my blood run cold. Liam, can't stop thinking about the other day. You're intoxicating. Bella, you're trouble, but I love it. Liam, let's skip yoga next week. I've got something special planned. Just us. I screenshotted everything, sending the messages to my email for safekeeping. But it didn't stop there. Photos of the two of them at what looked like a private beach. Bella in a sundress, Liam shirtless, receipts from expensive restaurants, ones she'd never mentioned to me. Then I found the kicker, a series of Venmo transactions. Bella had been sending Liam small amounts of money with captions like, "For the retreat," and "Thanks for the amazing session." It was small enough not to raise suspicion, but consistent. Was she financing his scams? My hand shook as I put the phone back where I found it, careful not to leave any trace of my intrusion. As much as I wanted to confront her then and there, I realized I needed a plan. Liam was dangerous, not in a violent way, but in the way con men are. I needed to outsmart him, not just catch him. The next morning, while Bella was out at yoga, I dove deep into Liam's background. Social media, court records, online forums. I left no stone unturned. The more I dug, the more I realized just how many lives he'd ruined. One particular post stood out, a woman describing how Liam had not only seduced her but also drained her savings by convincing her to invest in a wellness retreat that never materialized. The details mirrored Bella's Venmo transactions. I reached out to the woman, Sophia, through the forum. At first, she was hesitant to respond, but when I mentioned Liam's name, she opened up. "He's a parasite," Sophia wrote. "He preys on vulnerable women. I lost $15,000 because of him. He promises love, connection, healing, and leaves you with nothing." That sealed it. Liam wasn't just a cheat, he was a predator. Bella wasn't his first victim, and she wouldn't be his last. But I wasn't just going to expose Liam, I was going to make him pay. I needed leverage, so I decided to play Liam at his own game. I created a fake profile, a wealthy woman interested in yoga and wellness. I even booked a session at the studio where Liam taught. Under the alias Emily Blake, it was easy to find a stock photo of an elegant woman and set up a believable backstory. When the day came, I arrived early, dressed sharply, exuding the confidence of someone with money to burn. Liam spotted me immediately, flashing that trademark charm. He introduced himself, offering his hand. "First time here?" he asked, his voice smooth. I nodded, letting my smile linger. "Yes, but I've heard incredible things about you. I was hoping you could give me some private instruction." His eyes lit up, hooked. Over the next hour, I played my part perfectly. I acted interested, hanging on his every word. By the end of the session, he'd given me his personal number and offered to discuss private sessions over dinner. He had no idea who he was messing with. That night, I texted Liam as Emily, suggesting a meeting to discuss a potential investment opportunity in his wellness retreats. I knew the promise of money would reel him in. He agreed eagerly, suggesting a trendy wine bar the following evening. But Liam wasn't the only one I was meeting that night. I had also arranged to meet Sophia in person, and she had a file, emails, contracts, and payment receipts tying Liam to his fraudulent schemes. She was hesitant about going public, but when I told her about Bella, she softened. "If you're serious about taking him down," she said, sliding the file across the table, "then you'll need this." The pieces were falling into place. Tomorrow, I'd meet Liam as Emily and deliver the performance of a lifetime. The evening of the meeting arrived, and I walked into the wine bar as Emily Blake, a wealthy and naive investor eager to be charmed. My disguise wasn't elaborate, just enough makeup, an expensive blazer borrowed from a friend, and an air of confidence that screamed privilege. Liam was already there, seated at a table by the window. He stood when he saw me, flashing that same disarming smile I'd seen in the video of him with Bella. "Emily," he said, extending his hand, "you're even more stunning in person." I forced a polite laugh, playing along. "Flattery already, you must be very good at what you do." Liam ordered a bottle of wine, an expensive one. Naturally, as we sipped, he began spinning his web of lies. He talked about his wellness retreats, emphasizing the life-changing impact they had on clients. He mentioned plans to expand his business, tossing out buzzwords like mindfulness and spiritual synergy. I nodded and smiled, feigning interest, but inside, I was boiling. This man had the gall to scam people while toying with their lives. "So, what kind of investment are you looking for?" I asked, swirling my glass of wine. "I'd love to help you grow your vision." Liam leaned in, his expression serious. "With someone like you on board, I think we could turn this into a global movement. I'd need around $50,000 to start, a small price for the returns you'll see." $50,000, he said it so casually, as if it were pocket change. "That's a lot of trust you're asking for," I said, tilting my head. "How do I know this is the real deal?" He smiled, leaning back confidently. "You'll have to come to one of my private sessions to see for yourself. I promise, once you experience it, you'll know it's worth every penny." He reached across the table, brushing his hand against mine. My stomach churned, but I held my composure. "That sounds intriguing," I said, withdrawing my hand, "but I need to do my due diligence. I'll be in touch." After dinner, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I parked down the street and waited. Liam didn't leave the bar right away. He stayed for another drink, scrolling through his phone, probably messaging Bella or setting up his next con. I watched him leave and tailed him discreetly to his house. I wasn't just playing investigator, I was planting the seeds of his undoing. When I got home, I sent Liam a text as Emily, "I'm excited about our future collaboration. Let's meet again soon." He replied almost instantly with a winking emoji. But Liam wasn't my only target that night. I sent Bella an anonymous email with screenshots of his scams and a message, "Do you really know the men you're risking everything for?" I didn't sign it, and I didn't expect a reply. It wasn't about confronting her directly, it was about planting doubt, making her question her choices. The following day, I met Sophia again, this time with another ally, Jennifer, a woman who had also fallen victim to Liam's schemes. Jennifer had been skeptical when I first reached out, but when she heard about Sophia's evidence and my plan, she agreed to help. Together, we hatched a plan to expose Liam publicly. I crafted a fake email from a potential investor and sent it to Liam, asking him to prepare a presentation about his retreats. The email claimed it was for a group of high-net-worth individuals interested in wellness investments. Liam, of course, jumped at the opportunity. The stage was set. The meeting would take place at a co-working space I rented for the occasion. What Liam didn't know was that the investors would be Sophia, Jennifer, and a local journalist I'd contacted, who had been investigating wellness scams for months. That evening, Bella came home late, her face pale and her demeanor tense. She didn't speak to me much, and when I asked how her day was, she mumbled something about being tired and went straight to bed. I knew the email had rattled her. She was starting to see cracks in Liam's perfect facade, and it was only a matter of time before the whole illusion crumbled. But I wasn't done yet. As Liam prepared for his fake investor meeting, I made sure Bella received one more anonymous email. This one included the location and time of the meeting, along with a simple message: "You might want to see this." If everything went according to plan, Bella would show up, and she'd see firsthand who Liam really was. The trap was set, and I was ready to spring it. The day of the investor meeting arrived, and I woke up feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. Everything had to go perfectly. I'd planned this moment meticulously, and if it worked, it wouldn't just expose Liam, it would shatter the facade he'd built around Bella. That morning, Bella acted distant. She avoided eye contact and gave curt replies to my attempts at conversation. I could tell the emails had her on edge. She left the house mid-morning, claiming she had errands to run, but I knew better. The email with the meeting details was probably eating away at her curiosity. As for Liam, he was oblivious. When I texted him as Emily Blake to confirm the meeting, his response came quickly: "Can't wait to impress you. See you soon." I arrived at the co-working space early to ensure everything was in place. The room was perfect, sleek, professional, with just the right touch of pretentiousness to sell the investor angle. Sophia and Jennifer were already there, reviewing the evidence we planned to present. The journalist, Mark, arrived shortly after, armed with a recorder and a notepad. "Are you sure this will work?" Jennifer asked, her voice wavering. "It'll work," I assured her. "Liam's arrogance is his weakness. He won't see it coming." We took our seats around the table, the tension in the room palpable. All that was left was to wait. Right on time, Liam walked in, carrying a sleek portfolio and wearing his trademark confidence like a suit of armor. He didn't recognize Sophia or Jennifer, but his eyes briefly lingered on them, as if assessing their investor potential. Then his gaze landed on me. "Emily," he said, smiling warmly. "I'm so glad you could make it." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. I wouldn't miss it. He launched into his pitch, complete with a slideshow showcasing his successful retreats and photos of idyllic locations. The presentation was slick, but every word out of his mouth was a lie. When he paused for questions, I gave the signal. Mark hit play on his recorder, and Sophia spoke up, her voice steady. "Liam, can you explain why several of your past clients are accusing you of fraud?" Liam froze, his confident facade cracking for the first time. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. Jennifer leaned forward, sliding a stack of papers across the table. "These are contracts you issued for a retreat that never happened. Care to explain where the money went?" His face paled. This is a setup," he sputtered. "I don't have to answer these accusations." "Actually," Mark interjected, holding up his press credentials, "you might want to, considering this will be part of a story I'm publishing next week." Just as the tension reached its peak, the door opened. My heart raced as Bella stepped inside, her face a mixture of confusion and anger. She must have debated coming, but her curiosity, and maybe a growing suspicion, had won out. "Bella," Liam's voice cracked. His reaction told me everything I needed to know. He hadn't expected her to show up. "What the hell is going on?" Bella demanded, her eyes darting between me, Liam, and the others. I stood, locking eyes with her. "This," I said, gesturing to the room, "is who Liam really is. A con artist, a fraud, and the man you've been risking our marriage for." Her face crumbled as the weight of my words hit her. You did this." "I had to," I said firmly. "You wouldn't have believed me otherwise." Liam, desperate to salvage the situation, turned to Bella. "This isn't what it looks like. They're lying, trying to ruin me." But Mark chimed in, playing a recording of Liam's conversation with a past victim. The damning evidence left no room for denial. Bella looked at Liam with a mixture of betrayal and disgust. "Is this true? Did you scam these people?" Liam didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, as his world crumbled around him. Liam didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, as his world crumbled around him. "Unbelievable," Bella whispered, tears streaming down her face. She turned to me, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "I tried," I said, "but you were too caught up in his lies to see the truth. I had to show you." Bella stormed out, and Liam, realizing he was cornered, tried to leave as well, but before he could, Mark stopped him. "I suggest you stay and answer our questions. Running will only make you look guiltier." Liam sank into a chair, defeated. As I left the co-working space, I felt a strange mix of triumph and sorrow. Liam was exposed, his schemes unraveling before his eyes, but Bella's betrayal still stung. When I got home, Bella was sitting at the kitchen table, her face buried in her hands. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes red and swollen. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "I didn't know. I didn't see it." "I know," I replied, my voice cold, "but you still chose him. You let him come between us." "I was stupid," she admitted, "but I want to fix this. I want to fix us." I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me wasn't sure if I ever could. The days after the meeting were a blur. Bella tiptoed around the house, apologizing at every opportunity, but her words felt hollow. I was civil, even cordial, but something inside me had shifted. Trust, once shattered, doesn't mend easily. Liam, meanwhile, was in freefall. Mark's exposé hit the newsstands the following week, detailing his fraudulent wellness schemes and predatory behavior. It included interviews with Sophia and Jennifer, financial records, and even a clip from his pitch during our staged investor meeting. The fallout was swift. Liam's yoga studio closed, his reputation destroyed. But I wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I handed Bella a manila envelope. She looked up at me with wide, teary eyes. "What's this?" "Divorce papers," I said simply. Her face crumpled. "No, please. I told you I want to fix this. I'll do anything. Aaron, therapy, counseling, whatever it takes." I shook my head. "You didn't just cheat, Bella. You lied. You gaslit me, made me doubt myself, all while sneaking around with a man you barely knew. This isn't something we can fix." "I was stupid," she pleaded, grabbing my arm. "I got caught up in something, but I see it now. I was wrong. Don't throw away everything we've built." I pulled my arm away gently but firmly. "You threw it away the moment you chose him. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, or our marriage." She sobbed, but I felt strangely numb. I had made my decision, and for the first time in weeks, I felt at peace. Liam's downfall didn't end with the article. As his scams unraveled, angry victims came forward, filing lawsuits and criminal complaints. Among them was a surprising addition, Bella. She hadn't told me, but she had been funneling more money to Liam than I'd realized. Tens of thousands, siphoned out of her personal savings. When I confronted her about it, she looked ashamed. I thought he was going to take me away from everything," she admitted. "I thought we'd have a fresh start, a new life." "And now?" I asked. "Now, I realize he was just using me," she said bitterly, "like he used everyone else." I didn't feel sorry for her. She had made her choices, and now she was paying for them. But my greatest revenge wasn't Liam's public humiliation or Bella's regret. It was rebuilding my life without them. I threw myself into my work, took up hobbies I had long neglected, and reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from during my marriage. One day, I received a message from Sophia. "You should see this," she wrote, attaching a link. It was a news article. Local conman sentenced to 5 years in prison. Liam had been convicted on multiple counts of fraud and theft. The picture accompanying the article showed him in handcuffs, his smug demeanor replaced with a look of utter defeat. I couldn't help but smile. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Bella moved out, leaving behind memories that felt more like a cautionary tale than a love story. I kept the house, a decision I wrestled with at first. It felt tainted, but eventually, it became a symbol of my resilience. One evening, as I stood on the porch watching the sunset, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. "Some of us are meeting up for dinner next week," she wrote. "Come join us. You're part of the team now." I stared at the message for a moment, then smiled. Liam had taken so much from so many people, but in the end, he had brought us together. And as for Bella, she faded from my life like a shadow at dawn. Occasionally, I'd hear from mutual friends that she was struggling, trying to piece her life back together. I wished her no ill will, but I also didn't feel pity. I had survived the storm and come out stronger. That was enough.